You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. We're your hosts, Sophia,
Clover,
Emma,
Nina,
and we have no idea where Leah is, so maybe she'll pop in soon. What were we just saying, though?
we are talking.
Oh, we had got a review that I wanted to read. Let me pull it up. Okay.
That's awesome.
It was very sweet. It was a great review for the podcast. I was like, we need to share that. Okay, here it is. I love this episode so far. Haven't finished it yet, but really looking forward to listening to the rest. Sustainability is a big topic around here as I continue my journey towards apprenticeship, consider how to make a living while continuing school, etc. In general, I look forward to tuning in for every episode. I feel a little like I'm sitting with y'all over coffee. It's such a treat.
Oh,
So great, because that was kind of the vibe we were trying to put out.
I know, we need just some tea next time.
Yes, we need to have drinks.
I think that would be good.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking around. I'm like, I got tinctures. You guys want to take some tinctures?
Did we want to do check-ins?
Yes, let's start with check-ins. And then we have no idea what we're going to talk about today. Maybe dystocia, but we'll just kind of talk and see what unfolds. But yeah, why don't you check in first?
Okay.
Say your name, because there's so many of us.
Yeah, my name's Clover. I'm the newest to the group, and I started working with Sophia in the last month, which has been really fun.
The perfect student.
Yeah, right.
Last night she was sending us drawings, like homemade drawings, it looked like, of different like fetal positions in the womb. And Emma and I were like, oh my God,
I can't believe you guys are out me right
know
now.
she was an artist. And Emma's like, it's really hard to live up to these expectations. Turns out she traced some.
Yeah, I mean, which still counts, I feel like, as like being a smart, resourceful student.
But we were like, what? And I'm gonna have to post a picture of what my baby looked like, because I was like, no, this is the position I'm talking about. I tried to draw it, and then let me show you.
It looked like a little, yes. I was
gremlin.
A little sperm, and it did. It does look like.
Yeah.
I was thinking like skinny peanut gremlin or something.
It's really hard to get the proportions.
Yeah, so that's who Clover is.
Yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell. I am in the process of moving right now, or figuring out moving. I've been living in Berkeley, which is where I grew up, and now I'm in the process of moving to Petaluma. So me and my partner just found a spot to live in a rustic barn. So I'm looking forward to that.
To see it. Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. And other than that, yeah, all is well.
Awesome. Good part.
I don't know. I don't have a check-in.
We all look at Emma. She's like, I don't check in. Okay, Sophia, my check-in. Oh, I just had my 1-year anniversary with my husband.
Aww.
On 2222.
Yeah, baby.
Was that enough twos? Did I do them all?
No.
And yeah, it was really great. We've been together for, I guess it'll be 8 years this year. Long enough to have a almost 7-year-old. And we just kind of forgot to get married. So we got married last year in a pinch, and yeah, it was nice. No babies came. We went out to dinner, and it's a new restaurant, Paseo, California Bistro in Mill Valley. And his friend is the chef there. And so he was like treating us, and they're like, the chef is going to bring out some things before you order. So we were almost like totally full before we even ordered.
Oh,
yeah, it was really fun though. It was great. So yeah, that's what I did. That was like my highlight this week. What about you, Nina?
Yeah, this week was super, it felt really full. I had been home for like 10 days with my kids. One was sick and then the other was sick. And then the other one twisted her ankle and was home for days after that. So it was just like, it's having like quarantine PTSD. But they're both back. And I've just been like scrambling this week to catch up on all the things. And Leah and I have been doing more, like she's giving me more kind of admin responsibility. So like trying to integrate that into what I'm doing and finding time to still do schoolwork. And then we had a beautiful birth, like just perfect on Sunday. And so yeah, lots of postpartums and hanging out with the baby and just doing the thing.
Yeah, we were actually just talking because I'm learning more about finances and budgeting and trying to be better at that myself, because my pattern has always been, I've got a huge chunk of money, I can buy whatever I want, I don't have to pay attention to things. I don't need to look at prices. And then I'm like, where the fuck did my money go? And then this like drought, like feast or famine kind of thing. And so I've gotten much better at that, really good. But I just recently could see myself slipping back into that a little bit. I was like, okay, we gotta like reel it in here. And so I was offering Emma and Clover that as I'm learning about these things, like I have a friend who's amazing at budgeting, and I'm going to go over and sit with her and she's going to break things down with me. I was like, if you want, you could join me for that, because it's a piece of, it's not like specific to midwifery, but to like life and owning your own business specifically, that like sitting in with me on when I'm like working on taxes and like different things that are business aspect, but it's like a skill that is essential to learn.
It is. Yeah. And it's like we were talking about last time we met, like it's just not really integrated into at least at NMI, like into the curriculum much. So you're kind of just thrown in the end, like figure it out. And it's a steep learning curve.
Well, and I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but like I've been a student midwife for, 4 years, and I have spent many moments thinking like, where do I find out how much midwives make? What is the range? Like why does it feel like some midwives who are super busy still are really financially struggling, whereas like others have really, and everyone comes to midwifery with their own financial background and cushion or lack thereof. But I remember being a student and like a new student and trying to compare like nurse midwifery salaries to like LM salaries. And I was just like, where do you find this information? I still feel confused about that. So anytime now I feel like so bold when I know a midwife, I'm like, tell me all about your finances. I want to know how much you're charging. I want to know what your overhead is. Like,
are you divorced? And are you in debt? Please tell me.
Marriage? Like, seriously, though.
Don't you want to know how many babies we catch a month? No, I want to know.
Yeah.
Do you have no check-in, Emma?
I'm here and I'm drinking my water. I quit gluten.
Yeah.
That's
I
been
did.
better.
Yeah, that's been what, man. You're like growing as a human when you can like set boundaries for yourself and keep them, like little wins, man. And when you go to clients' houses and they make you beautiful cookies and you can't have any, but it's okay. Like, this is really my check-in. This is how boring my life is.
At least it's boring. There was a time frame where you had all the juicy check-ins and we were like, can shit calm down a little for you?
Yeah.
So whatever, gluten-free.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I'm just over here drinking my water, not eating gluten, posting reels on Instagram because it makes me feel good. I don't know. Can that be self-care?
Yes.
Totally.
I love your
I'm
Instagram
like, I keep
involvement.
posting followers and I'm like, you know what? You should be gaining them when you're posting reels, but I'm actually losing them. But I'm like, this is me, bro. Like, you really want to know who I am? This is me, and I'm 31, and I'm stepping into who I am.
I'm
Not eating gluten and posting reels.
I'm so into it. 100%.
That's my check-in.
Beautiful. Well, let's pretend that we're going to talk about dystocia and just see where it leads. Clover, the good student that she is, has her book in front of her and wants to read the definition of shoulder dystocia.
Well, I'm so glad we're talking about this because it just keeps coming up for me.
Oh,
and
great.
I was thinking, no, it hasn't like been coming up a lot in practice. Like
Okay.
it's just been on my mind a lot. And I was realizing as I was driving here today, I was like, oh, the first birth that I ever attended as a doula was a really intense dystocia.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, maybe that's been like just an imprint that I need to kind of examine a little bit more, because when I think about what really scares me in birth as I move towards being an independent midwife, it's dystocia in a lot of ways. Like I feel hemorrhage doesn't really scare me, like resuscitation doesn't really scare me, but for some reason dystocia like has a particular weight for me. So yeah, that was kind of why I was wanting to talk about it today. So anyways, I have Oxford and Foot right here. It's the 5th edition, and their definition of shoulder dystocia, and we can kind of discuss and debate, is true shoulder dystocia refers to the following situation. The presentation is cephalic, the head has been born, but the shoulders cannot be delivered by the usual methods. There's no other cause for the difficulty. So I feel like that's pretty, like, does anyone have any feelings about that definition on its own?
usual methods.
Right. Like that's kind of an interesting, like what does that have? What does that mean? Yeah. But yeah, I'm curious like what other people's feelings around dystocia or experience, or like what that means to you or what it brings up.
Yeah, well, but Leah's not here yet because you and Leah had a shoulder dystocia fairly recently.
We did. Yeah.
January. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I think
Oh, I think it was when my son was sick. I was thinking it was when I was sick. So I was supposed to go, but I didn't. But I think that was when Ben had his ear infection.
Yeah, and it was it was a little earlier. Yeah, that was like the first like true dystocia I think that I've been at.
Yeah.
Witnessed.
Do you want to talk a little bit about it? And the resolution?
Yeah. I feel similarly, Clover, like it's one of those things that like it makes me like catch in my chest a little bit when I think about. And I think part of that for me is like the time, like the kind of like telescoping, I call it, where like you lose that time. Like it can like the time between like crowning and the head being born and realizing that that's happening, like it can stretch in a way that for me is like, it's hard to put my finger on like, okay, now with all of these other things that we're watching for, like this is a dystocia and then needs to be managed in this XYZ way. And so it was a really, I mean, obviously everything was fine with this baby, but it was a really good opportunity to see that. And then to see like Leah switch into managing it, and it was so fluid and well managed. And I wish she was here because it's one of the things that I most value and admire and feel grateful for with working with her is like her ability to just kind of switch into like a management kind of like active mode and not pair that with like visible adrenaline. So she just did it, you know. And as a student, for me, that was really helpful because, you know, I've had the other experience of being present with someone when they are having like an adrenaline reaction to something that is potentially emergent. And then as a student, like trying to help them in that moment becomes really kind of stressful, right? Because you want to show up and you want to bring the things and do the things and like match what they need. But then when you're having like your own stress reaction to it, it's hard to show up in that way. So I really appreciate that about Leah. So it was like very fluid with both of us. And yeah, she, you know, we got the baby out, you know, she had a couple different positions. Eventually she ended up on her back, I think, or she was on her back and then she turned, you know, did like this squat, knee up, and Leah was able to pop his anterior shoulder arm under and, you know, and get him out. And it was like very quick. I mean, it probably, you know, was less than like 2 minutes total.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, you know, it was scary.
And how were baby's Apgars, if you remember?
Yeah, it was no Apgars.
Yeah.
Took a while, but you know, it was a lesson. And I mean, we were, you know, actively helping him, and he came around. You know, just took a little while and some effort.
Were there any signs, like as pushing was happening or crowning was happening? Was there any like?
Oh yeah,
There was.
yeah. His head just it kept coming. It's like head and then more head and more head. He was huge, and you know, it was just a lot of. We were both just like just kept on. I know you can't see on Zoom, I mean on the podcast what I'm doing with my hands, but it just kept on coming. And then, you know, obviously no restitution and just, you know, really very, very dusky. And yeah, and you know, he was just big guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, I mean, I've been at other births where like there's a little moment where it's like, okay, let's change your position. And, you know, usually like that's enough to just pop the shoulder under and then the baby comes quickly, right? This was the first time that it was like, we needed to try a couple different things first and be actively engaging with the baby. Yeah, that's my one personal experience.
Saying that Leah went in and got the anterior shoulder, or she went and got the posterior arm?
I think it was in the anterior arm. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to. And Mama was on her back or on hands and knees?
She was started on her back and then she flipped over. Yeah, I guess, you know, honestly, I can't remember which arm it was. She I'm sure would. Maybe she can mention that in the next podcast, but
Next week. Yeah.
she was like trying a couple of different things.
Yeah, so when I was at the birth center,
I mean, besides, yeah, you mentioned the first one.
yeah, that first one. The birth center that I worked at, I think I saw 6 dystocias. 6. I'm putting that in quotes because
yeah,
I can think of 3 of them being very obviously dystocias that required a lot of maneuvers and were long and definitely intense. And then 3 of the other ones where afterwards it was still intense, but we couldn't quite put our finger on whether it was dystocia or just really sticky shoulders. And yeah, the birth center that I worked at, each midwife had their own strategy, but I think that overall the director of the birth center really preferred that we don't go into a lot of positional changes and that we just go straight for the posterior shoulder in any dystocia, because she had, you know, she'd been a midwife for 30 years and that was like what she felt like was the quickest, most effective way to manage a shoulder. And yeah, it was really interesting. I think one of the more intense ones that I saw, I was there with another midwife who had been in practice for 30 years, and then her assist was also like one of the first LMs in the state to get licensed. And the primary midwife started to manage the dystocia and flipped the mom a couple times, and then she looked back at the assist, who had, you know, maybe 10 more years of experience than she did, but they were both incredibly, you know, skilled midwives, and she just looked at the assist and said, "I need your help." And in that moment as a student, I was like, whoa, I've never seen her like need something like that. And it was like a really intense moment of like, well, if the cyst can't get the baby out, then and at that point we had already called 911 and there was a long resuscitation and we didn't need EMS in the end. They stood by and waited for us, which they, in the area that I was, they were always really great about letting us manage things and being there if we needed.
They're
more
probably
support.
grateful for you to manage it, honestly.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I guess like that one was intense, and it was ultimately getting the posterior arm that released the shoulder. But yeah,
what position was the mom in at that point?
The mom was in hands and knees. But it was interesting because another friend of mine who's a midwife who I think takes a little bit of a different approach and is more hands-off. When I was talking to her, kind of debriefing all these dystocias, I was asking, like, saying 6 dystocias in 1 year seems like so much, and she was like, I just don't know if all of those were dystocias. And I was kind of like, whoa, that to me was kind of like a light bulb moment where I feel like that was what's kind of spurred wanting to have this conversation, because I'm really curious about that kind of narrative around dystocia. What is a dystocia? When does it really become an emergency, and when is it like a created emergency that midwives, bring into the room with their own fear
or acting out of fear of a potential dystocia?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do it looking back. If like what were all signs, and are you remembering correctly? And I guess you could go back in charts if it was charted correctly. But I have a friend who free birthed, and her daughter's head was out for 11 minutes before she was born, and she was slow to start and did fine. But the mom is like, for sure that would have been called a dystocia, if anyone else was there to manage. So it's so interesting, like when to step in, when not to. We had a mom who the baby's head was out for about 5 minutes. I was with Leah. And there was like a hand up and everything that was kind of slowing things down. And there was like a couple times where I was like, do I not? And we ended up not stepping in, and the mom had her baby. And postpartum, I was talking to her about how, as a midwife, sometimes it could be tricky to judge like when to step in on these things and when not to. And that I just kept asking myself if it was worth changing her story for, potentially, like I kept saying, like, because sometimes it is, and you do need to step in. And I just kept feeling like, give it a little bit more. And she started crying and saying, like, I forever would have felt like I needed help to birth my baby. And she was grateful that I hadn't. So I think it's important to not say like never step in, but that you stepping in will change someone's story. And so like make sure it's worth it, and like how you can't do that 100% of the time. You just have to like do your best. But that it's not like, we have to always remember it's not as simple as like, oh, better safe than sorry, because like we are changing women's stories, and it makes a difference to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like, just looking at this Oxford and Foot numbers, and I'm sure we could get more updated incidence rates, but they're saying that the general incidence rate is less than 1%, about 0.02%, and in babies weighing over 4,000 grams, which I can never convert to pounds, but in babies weighing over 4,000 grams, the incidence is 1.6%, so still less than 2%. So like when we're thinking about that, it's so low, it doesn't make sense to like
that the birth center had
the
6.
birth center had 6, and those were just the ones that I was at. There's more births that happen.
So 4,000 grams is 8 pounds.
So 8.5.
Yeah,
8.5 pounds. Mm-hmm. So they're saying even with a baby who's over 8.5 pounds, that it's less than 2%. And I'm sure that changes when you get up to like 10 pounds or 11 pounds. And then you also have to hold all those stories that we all hear as students and midwives of like the 11-pound baby that was born with no problem and no tearing, or the, we had a midwife in our area who had a 12-pound, 13-ounce baby born, no tearing, no dystocia.
Yeah. I had a client who, she hired me as her doula. Her first was born in the hospital, epidural on her back. They, had to break. I'm like really fuzzy with my memory now. Something happened, either they like broke her symphysis pubis to get the baby out, or they broke the baby's clavicle arm or something. Something got broken. It was just really traumatic experience for her. 9-pound baby, shoulder dystocia. And then she decided to have a home birth. And that baby was 11.5 pounds, and it was like an hour 45-minute labor, And so like that just goes to show like how much the mother's position clearly.
Right. I was going to say it's like as much positional as anything else, you know. I mean, there's plenty of huge babies that are born no problem.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
has to be
Right.
how they
Not-
come back.
I mean, I had a client who she had her first in the hospital, 11 pounds, and the midwife told her that it was the top 5 scariest births of her career or something, and that she should definitely just like sign up for a C-section the next time. And so she decided to have a home birth. And but she went back and forth because she was doing like we're sharing care, and every time she went in there, then she was like, now I'm not sure if I should do this, you know. They're having like family meetings at the hospital about why she shouldn't like have a home birth and that she should have a C-section. And so but she just kept coming back to like, I never felt scared during the whole like shoulder dystocia experience. I felt like everyone was overreacting, you know. I never felt scared for my baby. And so for her, she felt like that's because that was true, you know. And she ended up having like an 8.5 pound baby or something, like 4-hour labor, baby count, no problem, you know, and she was going to be shuffled away for her cesarean, just out of fear of it happening again.
Well, and like talk about changing someone's story, like that when you're thinking of that midwife, those hospital-based midwife saying top scariest, like way to put it in the frame of her own experience. Like, well, this is the top 5 scariest birth of my career. It's like kind of irrelevant to the mom. It's so not helpful.
It's just trying to scare her into what she wants her to do.
Well, and when I think about the way that I've seen shoulder dystocia managed, like, you know, with a timer, like with a stopwatch, someone's calling out like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45
how
seconds,
stressful
like
that is.
how intense the energy in the room gets. And I've definitely heard midwives talk about like how you need to up the intensity in the room. You need to get really clear with the birthing person that this needs to happen right now. And like, as I just sink deeper into like, oh, maybe there's another way, it doesn't seem very intuitive that would be the best way to help someone relax and open to birth the rest of their baby.
To make them
It'd be quite the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, when we were managing this story that I just described, like that definitely was absent. Like there was firmness and there was like encouragement, but the like fear factor and the intensity was not in the room to the point where like no one was stressing about it at all. I mean, we had our own feelings afterwards, but you know, it was fine, and we were just focusing. And you know, I know I've also heard that. I haven't been at births where it's been managed in that way, and I'm grateful for it because it's like just a whole different energy, you know. And inside she was able to focus doing without all of the adrenaline and the fear coming from us, and that felt like really relevant and important for her story afterwards too. So
Leah and I were at a birth together with a placental abruption, and the baby had to be transported for a blood transfusion. And I just talked to the mom recently who's pregnant again, and she said that she didn't even know that there was an emergency until we kind of explained to her what was going on and about, you know, what a transport would look like, because we were so calm. And I can't remember if I mentioned it, this birth was with Leah. And that is one of the things that I appreciate about Leah and love working with her, is that, yes, when I watch back like the birth videos, because I'm like, oh, I know how I felt inside. Like, I wonder how I looked on video, because usually the birth's being recorded. And I'm like, okay, pretty good. You know, I look really calm. Because you know how you feel inside, you know, all the like processes that are going on. Like we just had a surprise breech recently, and I was like, I want to see what I look like in that video. And it was like,
oh, it's a flood. Yeah. It's a goal and a huge skill, I think, from my perspective, to see that and have that as an example for myself, you know, just knowing how to manage situations with that kind of grace is like, I think half the battle.
Yeah. And I feel like it makes such a big difference to have like a sisterhood of midwives that you can call on to like help process and run that adrenaline through your body, because I definitely feel like it's easy to take it with you and not release it. You know, the dystocia that I was talking about being my first birth as a doula, the midwife ultimately ended up getting the baby by putting her whole hand in the mother's uterus and manually removing the baby, and that was the last birth that midwife attended. You know, and she was so calm and so competent and really did, I think, an incredible job, like, with the circumstance, and it wrecked her. It was so intense, and she was so afraid after that I think she needed a break. And so just curious to figure out how you can sit with that kind of intensity and
that's a really
the room to feel it all, and not wash it over with just like trust birth,
right.
Like, to really feel the intensity and then let it go. Or maybe not even let it go, but like.
Well, and I think I'm remembering now after that placental abruption birth, like, I backstory, I'm not a nervous person at all. I don't hold on to things very often. I think I get stressed like twice a year, maybe. Like, so backstory there. And I remember the feeling of like, I wasn't in a panic attack, but this was like weeks after this. Like, I was just having that like heart racing feeling of just like anxiousness. And I had a client I was on call for, and I remember her like calling me about like she was having contractions. It ended up not being labor, but I remember being like having to tell my body like, this is not an emergency. Like, you're responding. My body was acting like everything about birth was an emergency because of what I had. And I was grateful for the resources I had, because I do like acupuncture, and I'm always like, whatever you have for my adrenals, go for it, you know? And like tinctures I have that are like, I actually keep them in my birth bag now, like Rescue Remedy and flower essences and like Mary Ruth, I think she has one that is for like adrenals and like calming you. Because I think like all those things, and then talk therapy, you know, whether it's professional or with your girlfriends. Talk it out of your system. Because you can't pretend it's not there. It is.
No, I think it's super, super important. I mean, this is a great conversation too today, and maybe for another time, is like how to take care of ourselves after really stressful births or situations, you know, and what resources are available, because obviously people can burn out just from the stress and adrenaline. And then those moments become like imprinted on the way that we show up for births in the future, right? Like this midwife who was like, I'm done, that had to do that. And like how to process that energy out of ourselves so that we can show up without carrying all of that, you know, kind of baggage with us to each birth. And I just recently started therapy again after years. And I was talking yesterday about like that response that I do run anxious. I'm noticing in my life. It's something that I'm acknowledging more recently. And like you were talking about, Sophia, like the response of our body to a stress, like it doesn't necessarily follow rationale, right? It's not like this is a very stressful thing up here, and then this is like a little stressful thing. For me, it's like, it's just all stress. So it could be like a survival thing, or like I'm stressed about dishes, and it all kind of has the same reaction in my body, right? So it's like, I think it's just really important to, and obviously in birth, it can be survival and life and death and like really intense, heavy situations.
And like you can feel fine in your brain, but your body still has an experience. My daughter was born by cesarean, and I can't remember how old she was, but I was having acupuncture done, and I like, it was the first time I laid on my stomach and had like needles put in my back, and my body like lost it. I was like sweating, I was like almost passing out, and I like kind of was like flashing back to like the epidural cesarean situation that did not feel traumatic mentally to me. I chose it, like, you know, it was fine in quotes, but my body still held on to all the trauma from that. And I realized too, because my son had 6 surgeries his first year, it took that experience for me to be like, oh my gosh, he's probably spiraling out of control in his body, like all the memories that his body has held from all those traumas. And so I took him to do somatic body work. It was like 5 sessions, and he was like, because he used to be this little Tasmanian devil, just like blah, 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 everywhere, and he just like sunk into his body. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I had a pretty major surgery last year on my thyroid, and I had thyroid cancer last year, and like had a bunch of lymph nodes taken out. And it's such a trip when you go through a surgery like that, because in your mind you're like, you're out, you're not aware of what's happening, and your body is still having that reaction to the experience of being opened up and operated on and intervened with. And then you have to kind of bring those parts together of like what your mind went through in that experience and what your body went through, and find that place where they can heal each other. So I think it's really important in birth work to have those resources available to us also.
Yeah, I just started therapy too for the first time ever, which is awesome. I highly recommend. And I've done a lot of work, like working with Sophia. It's funny how like you go to school, but then all of the learning is really like a lot of unlearning, and you learn so much about midwifery by just navigating interpersonal relationships that unfold before you, and trying not to take everything on as like a personal thing, and like separating like this is fact and this is something that am I just feeling to like protect myself. That's a whole nother podcast, but we're all doing the work, which is good. My first primary birth was a shoulder dystocia, and it was really intense, and I wasn't given the opportunity to even like try to help the baby out. The midwife I was working with pushed me out of the way, and it became a very emergent, high stress situation. And I still hold a lot of that in my body. And when the baby came out, there was like no Apgars, and the baby was like black. And we did a resuscitation. That was my first resuscitation. But like the level of absolute emergency stress in the room was like, whew. And I kind of wish I would have been given, like that's the piece that I want to work out, is like if I'm in that situation as a primary midwife, trusting myself that I can step in. I wasn't given the opportunity to because I'm a student. I understand that, but not thinking that I can't do that because it was the story,
Yeah, but like the reason she stepped in is because she was the, licensed midwife, not because you didn't do it. But you can't convince your body that that's like the story.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much that somatic therapy can do that talk therapy I can't. Like, I just feel like somatic therapy for midwives should be like just like an integrated part of our self-care, because I feel like we all spend a lot of time in our brain because we're managing and thinking about these experiences and conceptualizing them, and the felt experience is so different.
Well, like you were saying, Nina, about like the mind and body, and like if you work on them both, then they heal each other. So you can't just do one without the other, or you're missing a whole piece.
And EMDR, like we talked about, with the interview, that I haven't done a lot of EMDR, but I'm really interested in doing more. I think it can be really helpful, like for finding where that is in the body, and working on it without having to like go back in and go down into the most painful parts of experiences in an intellectual.
For anyone listening, we'll link the episode with Gina about EMDR in the show notes.
And maybe this is like a whole other topic, but like I feel like the felt experience of that panic or fear that comes up in those emergent situations, or that can come up in those emergent situations, like, is that like you haven't integrated the possibility of death in every birth, and like what is our responsibility as care providers to really do that work to integrate that as a possibility.
And are we doing that with our family?
And are we doing that with our families? I'll always remember like I was really getting into trying to like be more realistic about this portal that we're working with, and like sitting with a family, and they were expressing a lot of anxiety about emergencies coming up, and I think I said to them, yeah, it seems like you're really sitting with the intensity of this portal between life and death, and they were just like so not into that.
Yeah.
And part of it's reading the room and reading your clients,
Right.
but it was kind of surprising to me how these folks who were like super earthy and seemingly like embodied were not willing to go there or acknowledge that was also in the room, that death was in the room. It was like I had said the worst word that I could have possibly said. And that's really sad to me, because it feels like this like dishonesty that we're all kind of, or like a kind of like game that we're playing with clients if we're not being really clear about that.
And the thing is, if our job is to make it so no baby ever dies, like, then the hoops we have to jump through to make that happen, if that's our responsibility, if that is never like allowed to be an outcome. And not that anybody ever wants that, but like, can anybody always prevent that? They can't even do it at the hospital,
And talk about anxiety, like talking about getting your adrenals onto this like level of overwhelm. If you're carrying the responsibility of saving every situation and being fully responsible for that portal, which you just actually in reality can't be responsible for that.
Well,
that's
and
not your responsibility.
That's why we've ended up with the births we have in the hospital, fully completely managed and monitored every second of the experience, because we have to prevent this outcome at all costs. And look at what the costs are,
and it's still not successful in spite of all of that management.
Our outcomes are
pass all the time
worse in lots of other countries, so not actually helping.
I think it's Charles Eisenstein who says safety third, which again feels like really charged in the context of birth, but it's the idea that like safety is really important, and it's not 10th, it's not 20th, it's third, but it's also not the most important thing potentially, and every family gets to make that decision. What is their list of priorities in terms of their birth experience? Is it being in alignment with the natural process? Is it, what is it? But like this thing where we automatically assign safety as the number one priority above all things, above the experience, above the spiritual process. I just don't know if that does people a disservice. And maybe it's that's just where we've landed as a culture, and it's a lot to ask for people to fully integrate all those things. I mean, I can't say that I have, but
this was a good one.
That's a good thing to continue at some point talking about.
It sounds like we're gonna have lots of other topics that fall from this one. Well, our time has come to an end.
We do
Questions for each other?
I also just really want to plug my functional medicine practitioner who's quite affordable, named Michelle Hirsch, who has a fantastic protocol specifically for midwives who are on call. That's an adrenal protocol. Her practice is called Beyond Mountain Wellness. I literally refer everyone I know to her, and it has really made a huge difference for my adrenal health, which was like pretty bad when I first came to her. And she designed it because she worked with a lot of midwives, and she was like, I really wish that all midwives started this earlier in their career instead of coming to me 20 years in, fully burned out and like full adrenal failure. So if anyone's interested in her, Michelle Hirsch, she's really fantastic. Maybe we can link to her.
We will link her in show notes.
Thank you. That's really, I've had to with all the health stuff that I've been dealing with this past year, like my energy and adrenal situation is totally different than it used to be. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is what, because I just don't have a thyroid now. Right. So it's like that, it's just totally related to my fatigue and energy and brain fog and all of these things that I'm having to manage now. So thank you. I'm going to look her up.
She'll be linked in the show notes, Nina, so you can check it out.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for that referral.
Yeah, Nina, I relate to that so much. We should make that a podcast topic. But yeah, I have autoimmune diseases and I have chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and it's like what other people can handle versus what my nervous system can handle is very different.
Yeah.
So I totally relate to you on that. And it's important to like take care.
Which is hard working with me because I'm go, go, go.
Yeah.
And it's like, can we stop for a minute?
Yeah. I'm used to being go, 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 and now I just can't. So it's like, oh, okay. Like I just hit a wall and I'm like, and I'm done. And so I'm trying to get better at recognizing that those feelings coming up before I'm just like slammed and can't do anything. So yeah, it's important.
Like a part of integrating the sense of our own mortality. Like,
Yeah.
if we're talking about, here's to all the self-care for all the midwives and students and all the integration of the portal of life and death.
That'll be another podcast episode, is like planning for retirement. Because like you can't midwife forever, you know, like eventually you gotta pause.
Yeah, what's your second career?
Right? Making reels on Instagram.
My retirement involves moving to Cuba when I'm 70.
Yeah, there you go.
Retirement plan.
Cheers to that.
Don't have another one yet.
You wanted to do questions, Emma? Yeah, she changed her mind.
But dear listeners, tell us what you want us to talk about. If you have things that come up, hit us up in the DMs. We look at all of your messages and we will talk about it.
Yes.
Until next time, bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA.
Sophia at sophiabirth.com.
And me, Leah, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always,
Stay wild.